Hey, good morning, guys. I'm glad you all are able to check this out. And as always, I ask you pass it around. And just want to get the word in, people. I hope you're having a great day and having a good week. Um, Stay safe, walk in wisdom and in faith as we do and as we should. And again, thank you for checking this out and tuning in. I did just get to come back from my friends in Augusta, which I absolutely love. They're in North Augusta, and had a wonderful time with Pastor Philip and all the crew there. And if any of you guys are checking this out, man, I certainly love you guys and appreciate you very much. I want to share something briefly with you today because, again, I've got another thing to do right after this. But I started looking at the scripture, and the scripture's not just in the Bible; it's written on your heart. That's what the Apostle Paul said in his writings. He said these laws are not just going to be written on tablets; those have been done away with. But the new law of love, the law of life, is written on your heart. And so I started studying out the science of happiness, because being a believer many times is taken in such a short context. Well, I'm a believer. Well, that means you believe in Jesus and you're going to heaven when you die. Well, there's more to being a believer than that. Being a believer means you are using the four chemicals in your brain that affects your body and the rest of your life. And so I want to give you a few scriptures as to how to operate in and walk in this happiness, because being a believer means we're supposed to be happy. It doesn't mean we don't go through problems. Anyone that teaches you're not going to have a problem once you become a believer, they don't know what they're talking about. I'll be nice. They do not know what they're talking about. You're going to have problems, but happiness is a choice. And so you can choose this day to be happy. Well, Mark, you don't know what I'm going through. But until you become happy, what you're going through cannot change. So I want to show you how to be happy, if that's okay. And thank goodness for the sunshine around here. My lighting is not the best, but this is wow. It's Word on Wheels. In Hebrews, the 4th chapter, the 9th, even through the 11th verse, the word says, there remains therefore a rest for the people of God, for he that has entered his rest has also ceased from his own works, as God did from his. So then he goes on in the 11th verse and tell us, this is our only struggle in life, is to enter that rest. Well, Mark, how do I know if I have entered the rest of God? Because you're happy, no matter what. It doesn't mean you don't have bad things happen to you. It doesn't mean you don't get discouraged. It doesn't mean you don't have opportunities not to be happy. It just means you've made a choice to be happy. And so, Mark, how do I get that happiness? Cease from your labor. Cease from your works. And when the word says cease from your works, I want to put this in a short, concise way. It's a deeper teaching. But do you realize your prayer life can be a work? You know, you can, well, I've just been praying about this all the time. That means you've been working yourself to death. Well, I've just gotten busier at the church during this time. You're working yourself to death. And so anything you feel like you have to do to be rewarded something, as far as praying enough. Even I am a word of faith person. I believe in the power of positive confession. I believe in speaking to the mountain. But even confessions can become a work of the flesh. And so many times we in the faith and kingdom movement think, oh, I don't operate in the flesh. But if you feel like you got to pray a lot, you got to confess a lot, you've got to do this a lot, and I'm seeing you guys chime in. I'm so glad you're here. If I don't acknowledge each one of you, I'll take a sidebar here. If I don't acknowledge each one, it's because I'm not that good. I can't focus on my message and talk to people at the same time. But every now and then I'll see somebody pop up, and Sandra and Donnie and Carolyn. Thank you guys for chiming in. But the works of the flesh, and very few people teach this, but if you think about it, it's the absolute truth. Mark, is it good to pray? Yeah, but if prayer is wearing you out, it is a work of the flesh. Well, don't you believe in positive confession? Of course I do. But does your attitude back up your confession? For instance, how you doing? Well, I'm healed and highly favored. Well, why'd you even say it? Because that's not your attitude, okay? But I do believe in confessing it, because faith comes by hearing, and positive confession, you hear your confession, it'll build your faith, yada, yada. I know that. But don't use what we have deemed Christian works and say that's going to move God. It doesn't move God. So let us labor to enter that rest. How do I enter his rest? I cease from my works. What do you mean? Well, then, Mark, what is my labor? I love to use the Bible to define the Bible. John 6:29, Jesus said, "This is the work of God, that you believe on him who he has sent." That's the only battle we have, is to believe Jesus did the work. This is how you enter his rest. You know what he did and why he did it. He did all the works to please the Father. You've got to understand you're qualified. Why? Because he did all the work. You've got to fight the fight of faith. What is the fight of faith? I'm believing that's mine. I'm believing that's mine. That's not the fight of faith. The fight of faith is to believe that he did all the work. So do you follow me? Know what he did. He did all the works. Understand why you're qualified to be happy. He did all the works. Fight the fight of faith. The faith that he did all the works. Sometimes you just have to stand still and be quiet. Okay? And sometimes we get too noisy, too busy, and too laboring in our religious life that our natural life cannot be enjoyed. Okay? You look back at the book of Job, the 1st chapter, the 5th and 6th verse, and you study it out for yourself. We don't have time this morning, but Job opened the door to stress because he was laboring over things that hadn't even happened yet. And so Job's labors to please God brought him into stress. Look at Exodus, the 14th chapter, 13th, 14th verse. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And the word says, hold your peace. How do you stand still and hold your peace? In the Hebrew language, it means this: don't scratch your itch. Don't scratch your itch. You feel like an itch when, this isn't working out. I got to pray about it again. Don't scratch that itch. It's a labor. Well, I need to fast 3 days over this. Don't scratch that itch. It's a labor. And this may be blowing your mind. Well, Mark doesn't believe in prayer. I believe totally in prayer. And over these 30, 31 years of doing this, some people think Mark doesn't believe in praying. Of course I believe in praying. But listen, do you have a prayer life or do you have a fellowship life? Do you have a petition life or a communication life with God? What do you mean, Mark? Prayer life is, Father, I'm believing you're going to do this. I'm asking you to do this. Here's the fellowship life. Father, I want to thank you. All of this is in your hands. I've got things going on right now. I'm like, God, this is yours. I am not going to worry about it. I'm not going to mess with it. It will be what it's supposed to be because you are God. Do you use your confession life to gain something or to ascend to something? I don't confess I'm healed to be healed. I confess I'm healed because I am healed. Do you see where it can become a labor? Okay? And so if you'll cease from your works, you will enter happiness. Another example is in the book of Luke, the 10th chapter. And I always give her a hard time, but Martha, oh, Martha. The word says, and I'm going to read this off to you. As they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister named Mary who just sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. How did Jesus respond to a believer who had invited him into their house, but yet they were distracted trying to please him? He said, Martha, you're anxious and you're troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen to do what I deem necessary. She is resting at my feet. His feet represents his authority. She is resting in the authority of who I've called her to be. So what's this? The hardest thing to do in a battle, and we're all going through battles. We're going through financial battles, physiological battles, relational battles, whatever the battle is. Globally, going through a pandemic battle, the hardest thing to do is just wait. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Wait. Now, and for some of my friends, and even myself, I've taught series on spiritual warfare. And a lot of people, well, this is a tool for spiritual warfare. This is a tool. This is a tool. And thank God for all the tools. But the most valuable weapon in the arsenal of your warfare is the ability to wait. That's it. The ability to wait. Now, well, Mark, how do I get to the point I can just wait? Because some of you watching this and listening to it, you're thinking, I've been praying for my kid. I've been praying for this. I've been believing about that. I've been wanting this to happen, and so on. We all go through that. But the question is, when are you going to reach the place you're happy just waiting? When you can be happy waiting, you will live a satisfied life. The science, and you that know me know I love to study psychology and neuroscience and things like that and line it with the scriptures. The science of happiness tells us that, like most of our emotions, it's simply the result of releasing happy-related chemicals. And specifically, there are 4 chemicals that potentially play in your brain and through your body in your life They are dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Each of these chemicals, isn't it amazing how God created us? Because we read Hebrews 4:11, enter his rest, and people's thinking, okay, how do I do that? Release the chemicals, people. Release the chemicals. You don't need a prayer line. You need to use what God has put in you. And I hope this isn't too straightforward. I believe I'll pray with anybody. But sooner or later, you got to use your own dope. Sooner or later, you've got to use your own chemicals. And so anytime happiness is released, rest is entered. Well, how do I know I'm entering as rest? Because you're releasing your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin, your endorphins. Each of these chemicals are released in response to different emotional states. Okay? What do you mean different emotional states? When you go through a problem, and I like to parallel, you can use this for anything. When Jesus went to the fig tree to see if perhaps he could eat from it, and he noticed at the fig leaves were there, but he turned the leaf over and there was no fruit there. And so he cursed the fig tree. Okay? When you see a problem, what is this? Serotonin is a chemical that is released when you feel important, accepted, recognized. Okay? Hang around people that cause you to release your serotonin. But pretty soon you're going to have to release your own serotonin, and just knowing yourself, I am recognized by God. I'm accepted by God. Jesus saw the problem, but he knew he was recognized by the Father, so he spoke to the problem. Okay? Now what's this? When he spoke to the fig tree and said, be cursed from the root, that's because his serotonin was flowing. I hope this isn't too deep, too early on a Sunday morning. And then all of a sudden, once he spoke to the problem, it was because his endorphin chemicals started flowing. How does my endorphins work in my life? Endorphins, chemicals in your brain, are released as a survival mechanism. In other words, what do you do when you see a problem? Do you call the prayer team, or do you speak to the problem? Jesus spoke to the problem. So there's the proof. He went into survival mode. That mechanism was released. That chemical was released. What's he doing? He is starting the process of happy. Have you started your process of happy? I know you've talked about your problem, but have you started the process of happy? And once he spoke to it, what did he do? He walked away from it. Have you walked away from your problem yet? It doesn't mean you don't care about it. It's just a refusal to worry about it. Because anything you choose to worry about, you have not totally given to God. And we're having to learn that. So when Jesus walked away from the fig tree, he said, you'll be cursed from the root. The tree was still there, but he walked off. All of a sudden, the dopamine chemical started flowing. Do you see how the Father created us? Is God cool or what? Nobody else could do that. Dopamine is that exciting feeling you get when you're about to be rewarded. But see, if you don't know who you are and what authority you have, that you've been recognized by the Father, and you know the power of the seed, you've already sown into it. Now, once you've spoken to it, your dopamine can start kicking in. And all of a sudden, dopamine to the brain is like cocaine. Okay? Some people smoke crack because they don't release acts of authority. But God is already, you've got your own cocaine, people. It's in your brain. It does the same thing to your brain that cocaine does. And so when you walk away just knowing it's going to be okay. Well, Mark, I don't know why it's taken so long. Because you keep looking at the fig tree. Walk away from the fig tree. That's the reason I said your battle is to wait. Your battle is not what you're going through. Your battle is simply to wait. And I've got to hurry. And so I released dopamine just simply by the knowledge that his word cannot lie to me. And the seed I sowed will not return void. Mark, how do I walk in happiness? Pray to find your seed, sow your seed, walk off like it's done, knowing you have the authority to declare that. And then the last one, the last chemical that's released is oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is a hormone that's secreted in the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland at the base of the brain, and it's released when you trust. Isn't that so cool? Oxytocin is released when you trust. We have yet to enter his trust. So oxytocin is also known as the cuddle hormone, the love hormone. So the word says Jesus spoke to the tree, he walked away from it, he went to Bethany, he went to sleep. And when they came back in the morning, the tree had dried up. Why are you hanging around your problem? Rest. Sow your seed, walk away from it, and refuse to engage with more prayer, more fasting, more labors trying to make it work. You've got to trust the seed. And please don't take this that I don't believe in prayer and fasting. I believe in prayer and fasting. But you don't use it as a work to get God to do something. And the seed you sow is not to get God to do something. The seed you sow is your act as God to command the earth to release what is yours. So what's this? In the science of happiness, when you sow your seed, that's serotonin being released. When you walk away from it, that's your endorphin. The dopamine is just knowing it's going to be all right. And the oxytocin is being able to rest through it and not worry about it. Now, in science, happiness has been linked. Watch this. Now, what is happiness? When all four of these chemicals are working in you. But it's your choice whether to release these chemicals. Happiness, by science, is linked to lower heart rate and blood pressure. It acts as a barrier between you and germs. Don't you know we need that right now? I still say wash your hands, use sanitizer, wear your mask if you want to. You live your own convictions. Just don't make other people uncomfortable with your faith. And people who are happier, they say, enjoy greater protection against stress and release less of the stress hormone cortisol. Happy people tend to experience, I love this, fewer aches and pains, including muscle strain, heartburn, and dizziness. They have proven that those that are happiest tend to live significantly longer than those who are not. So what does it take to be happy? Get your serotonin, your endorphins, your dopamines, and your oxytocin's working. And the way you get them working is know you're accepted, speak to the problem, sow your seed, walk away, rest, and let the seed do its job. Happiness is our goal. So as a believer, we ought to be happy, not that we're just going to heaven, but happy that no matter what comes at us in life, we've got the chemicals in us, the knowledge of the scripture to release those chemicals, and the wherewith to do it. So I hope that helped you guys today. And I really, really, really appreciate you being a part of the ministry during this COVID time. You've allowed me to come to you once a week, sometimes twice, and minister, and some of you have supported the ministry. If you have yet to do that, it's such a blessing. This is what we do. So markshellministries.com. You can email us any questions. And speaking of email, July 6th, Monday night, 7 o'clock. And I was doing Monday nights once a month at the Hilton Garden Inn, one of them here in Tulsa, at the conference room. And because of the shutdown, I have had to hold off about 2 or 3 months. But I am scheduled to be back there Monday, July 6th. You that are in the Tulsa, the Oklahoma area, and you know you're wanting to come, I want you to understand we are going to acknowledge the social distancing. We are going to take your temperature at the door. It's not because we're going to freak out, but you never know who's going to come, and we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, and we just want to walk in wisdom. So hopefully that's not offensive, but that's just what we're going to do. And so if you want to wear a mask, that is totally at your discretion. But we will have the social distancing in the room, and we will have the temperature taken as you enter the room, just for everyone's safety and peace of mind. But what I need you to do, if you know you're going to come, please take a minute and email me and let me know. Because if this is a lot of expense. So if people are still a little leery, I don't want to do it. So I need to know by RSVP if you're going to come. So if you'll email me at contact@markshellministries.com or markshellministries@gmail.com and just let me know. And then the following weekend, July 10 through 12, I'm going to be in Breckenridge, Texas at a conference hall called The Popular. It'll be on a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday night at 7 o'clock each night for my Texas friends. If you can make it, we'll have a blast, and we'll be adhering to the same rules: social distancing, temperature taken, wear the mask if you want, totally up to you. But we're gonna do it right, because we do want to stay within the guidelines of what wisdom says. And so also Sunday morning, July 12th. Now I'll be in Breckenridge Friday night at 7, the 10th, Saturday the 11th at 7. Sunday morning I'll be at Danny and Neva Brown's church in Eastland, Texas, Kingdom Builders. And so that'll be on the website. These are last minute. If you've looked, my schedule has been emptied. We always stay busy, but it's had to be emptied. So that will be on Sunday morning. We'll do Danny and Neva Brown, and then Sunday evening we'll be back in Breckenridge. So I hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for being a part of the ministry, and many of you have supported the ministry, and for that I cannot say thank you enough. Very, very much. So be happy. Release your happiness by learning you're recognized and appreciated by God. He gave you the authority to sow to the problem. He gave you the power to walk away from it. And He gave you the oxytocin to rest through it and just cuddle up with God. Hey, you guys have a blessed day. I will see you next weekend.